Google Maps in Microsoft Flight Simulator? It's a question that's been asked ever since the release of the sim. Well, it's actually been possible for quite a while now thanks to a mod developed by Derekhe over on the FlightSim.to website. Now in this video I want to take a look at something very specific. There's regions on this planet, regions on Earth, that don't have particularly good Bing world map data. Many of those regions are in the world's extremities, such as the Arctic and the Antarctic. However, there's other areas on Earth which just aren't that easy to get satellite imagery of. So yes, there's many such places, two of which are Russia and China. Today we're looking at Russia. This is Moscow. We're just about to move away from it. I think the main difference you'll notice here is really the quality of images over the roads. Moscow, of course, doesn't have any photogrammetry, so this is a purely AI-generated city. Not a lot of difference overall between the two mapping systems at any rate. Now, as we move through this video, you'll notice that in some cases Bing has slightly better quality, in other cases Google has significantly better map quality. Case in point, take a look at the mountain in the distance there, just above the left wing. There you can see Google has quite a lot higher resolution there. One other thing you'll notice is that Bing tends to have a much higher colour saturation. The images, all in all, are far more vibrant, the greens are much greener and far more saturated. And again, you'll notice the quality of the resolution differences here for the textures, as well as the saturation of the colours as we get a little closer to this mountain range. So let's talk a little bit about the mod itself. The way that Microsoft Flight Simulator works is that it streams in map data from the Bing servers. And this is why the environments within Microsoft Flight Simulator look so realistic. The game is literally using real-world map data, real-world satellite imagery. The fact that this imagery then is being streamed to your computer means that there's a lot of data transferring across the internet from the Bing servers to your computer. What this Google mod does is intercept that traffic and change it out. Instead of making the requests to the Bing servers, it makes the requests to the Google Maps servers. Surprisingly then, the two systems are compatible with each other. The mod, what that does is simply hijack the data. It's effectively a man-in-the-middle attack. Legitimately done, I guess, or not legitimately done, depending on your interpretation of Microsoft's terms of service. Obviously, Microsoft are not going to be too happy about players doing this. So if you are going to try it out, do keep in mind you're trying it at your own risk. I'm also not going to show you how to do this in this particular video, but I will link a video below where you can find instructions as well as the links to the mod itself. The mod has been around for quite a few months at this point, so if anything nefarious was really going on with this, then I'm sure as a community we would be well aware of it by this point. It actually has around 60,000, maybe close to 70,000 downloads right now, so there's a lot of people out there using this. But as I said, do keep in mind that you try it at your own risk, and obviously I don't take any responsibility for any errors that do come up if you do decide to try it out. Now here we are over the Russian tundra, beautiful area in the real world, loads and loads of lovely open expanse. On the left we can see Google, on the right we can see Bing, and aside from the colour saturation here, and obviously the fact that the imagery was taken at a different time of the year, there really isn't too much difference in terms of quality. And generally speaking, in my opinion, as I've tested out a variety of different areas, that really does seem to be the case for the most part. From time to time, Google does have some significantly higher world map data, but for the most part there is some relatively good parity here. The main difference really seems to come down to the colour differentiation, as well as the fact that the imagery is clearly taken at different times of the year, like the little pools down there at the bottom, the little ponds are frozen on the Bing map, but they're not frozen on the Google Maps. The same seems to be true here. Clearly these were taken at different times of the year, but also I'd go as far to say that Google seems to have some better DEM data here. Overall, the mountains just seem to be a bit more detailed on the Google side of things. Now I have checked this mod out with some areas of the planet that have a far better satellite imagery, and this would be America as well as Europe. In general, I think there's a lot of parity between the quality of the footage, or the quality of the imagery rather, between Google and that on Bing. But when it really comes down to it, Bing is just a lot better because, well, it seems to be formatted, of course, for the flight sim itself. Some of the problems you'll find with Google imagery is that in areas it has Google text overlaid across the terrain. And this is simply because Google is overlaid across the terrain in Google Maps as well, and that's just taken straight into the sim. Another thing you'll notice when using both Bing Maps and Google Maps on the web browser is those big square blocks you notice from time to time. This is where photos are stitched together and they're taken clearly at different points in time. Now, Bing does a very good job of this with Microsoft Flight Simulator, although it's apparent from time to time, generally they blend pretty well. However, with Google Maps, you'll notice these boundaries are very obvious and very stark. With all of that said then, what is the takeaway? What is my opinion on the mod itself? Well, the mod is very impressive. For one, people have asked for a long time to be able to see Google Map data within Microsoft Flight Simulator, so the fact they can now do that is pretty neat. The side effect of this, of course, is that it's not all roses. Whilst there's certain areas in the world, like here, where Bing Maps clearly suffers and Google Maps is clearly superior, generally speaking, I feel the default maps are far better simply because they're clearly better compatible with Microsoft Flight Simulator. Overall, the impression I got is that Microsoft Flight Simulator is doing some post-processing on certain areas of the Bing Map data. And this tends to help avoid certain elements like the checkerboard effect that I mentioned earlier on. The bonus, of course, is that Google Maps tends to have much better world map data in the remote areas of the planet, as well as areas such as Russia and China. So if those are the sort of areas that you really do want to check out, then the mod is probably worth taking a look at. Again, you can find a link in the video description. That then brings us to an end of this video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.